Buddy. Hello? Dude. Hello? Okay, there we go. My voice box wasn't working whatsoever. I'm sorry. Sometimes it does that, and I don't know why. Yeah, no, it's not that I'm muted. It's that the little voice box I have over here, let me see if I can actually show it. Yoink. Yeah, this little thing right over here is what controls my audio, and sometimes it's super duper finicky, so I had to just make sure that it was working properly. I don't know what causes it. My Windows just updated, so, like, maybe that's what did it. I was a little bit worried about that. It's like, I have a lot of, you could probably see from that little snapshot, I have a crap ton of technology sitting on this desk, and every bloody time Windows tries doing an update, something goes wrong. So that was the something that went wrong for this particular stream. But it seems to be working now, so we should be okay. And my autofocus isn't working. That's new. Let's look at the autofocus. We're just doing a long list of things that aren't working right now. Video capture device, properties, configure video, camera, autofocus. Let's see if that does anything. Ooh. There we go. Actually, I'm going to bop it down to 30 just in case. And now we put it on auto. Apply! Okay. It looks like we got all the kinks worked out for today. We should be good now. Also, I woke up with a mohawk this morning, and I was giggling and running around the house super duper energetically, because I've had super long hair all my life. Like, when I was in high school, my hair was literally down to my butt, and then throughout all of college, it was at least, like, down to here, and I would dye it really cool colors. If you guys saw me on TikTok anytime before, like, December 2020, you'd see that my hair was longer, and I just made it crazy colors. So this is, like, the first time in my life I've sported short hair. And it's super fun, and I really like it, actually. The problem is people misgender me now, because I am generally she, her. Sometimes I have days that I lean more towards they. But, yeah, it's been interesting. Some lady was scared that I was a guy gonna kidnap her kid at one point, and I was like, ma'am, I have tatas. I'm not gonna hurt your kid. I just want to, get my groceries and get out of here. But you left your kid alone for 10 entire minutes in its stroller. So of course I'm gonna sit here and make sure it doesn't get actually kidnapped. But like the cashiers, the cashiers were like looking at me suspiciously, like, is that man going to kidnap that kid? It's a person with short hair. And to be fair, I was wearing a leather jacket and jog bra, so my boobs were squished down. So I guess I did look a little bit like a guy. But it's still like, you left your kid alone for almost 10 minutes. Of course I'm gonna sit and make sure they're okay. Idiot. I don't understand people sometimes. Okay, let me get the comment section up on the left. And my stream health on the left too. Everything, I have a double screen set up, so there's like left, right. Red, you're not late. You're fine. I started late today, so the late person was me. Okay, let me blip it up into the corner. Stick it. I actually really like OBS Studio now. Like, I use Bandicam to record a lot of the time, but OBS Studio is wonderful because I can just actively move things around, and I need to figure out how to actively record with OBS Studio. Oh wait, there's a record button right there. I have now learned how to actively record with OBS Studio. Ah, wait. So actually, cool. Red 2000 is starting really early, and we're talking about character design, I guess. Here, I'm going to... The next 5 people, I'm going to try getting through 5, but I found out the last stream we did, it takes a while to teach. So the first thing we're going to go through is character design. If people want to make 4 more requests, I will go chronologically if I can. Hello, Wazzle. How are you doing? Okay, so we have character design. Red, could you also be a little bit more specific? What about character design? Because that's like saying, how do you go fishing? There are a zillion different parts and ways that you go fishing. So, like, what specifically about character design do you want me to teach? Shading, Ella. Okay, we can do shading. Again, Ella, I'm going to be waiting for your description of what about shading do you want to learn, because there is a crap ton that I could be teaching about shading. Catermelon is asking for hair. So we got hair. That's 3. I can do 2 more. Okay, I think this is good. Error is asking... Error, I like that name. Error is asking, can you do clothing, drapes, and shading? That's a lot. What I can do is teach the basics of drapery and clothing. And then Mouse Prince asked, I've been having a lot of anxiety about backgrounds, if you want to do a bit about perspective and nature scenes. Okay, general perspective / nature scenes. Also, Mouse Prince, I just came out with a video, actually, on my Tutorial Tuesdays. There is a basics of perspective video. So I'm going to edge more towards nature scenes than perspective, so that I can teach, you know, nature, which I haven't taught yet in the tutorial list. So that will be our 5 for this particular week. I guess if anybody wants, God, what is it called? I forgot to mention that if somebody super chats and asks for a particular tutorial, I can jump ahead and do that one too. Like, I will extend the thing and add extra length and do more, just so I can add the super chat requests. But for now, I completely forgot to ask that. For now, we're doing character design, shading, how to do hair, basics of clothing and drapes, and nature. So that will be today's general overview of what we're going to be learning. Okay, I'm looking for Red's comment. I would like to know how to make my characters look different and tend to have similar body types. They don't and they look the same. Okay, so you're talking about variation. I'm actually just going to go through shape language and then variation. I'm going to give you a few games you can play. Awesome sauce. So yeah, character design and variation. Still waiting for... Where did they go? Ella Vlogs, you need to tell me what about shading you want to learn, because there is seriously so many different things to learn about shading. Hair, which I can do pretty quickly. There's so many different styles of hair to do. Are you talking just about general hair techniques? Because I can show you how I make hair. There's like more realistic hair, there's more cartoony hair, there's like a crap ton of different kinds of ways you can do hair. And I guess I'll go over the very basics of shading hair as well. Basics of clothing and drapery and nature. This is a very busy one, so let's see. I'm guessing this will be like... I'll try to spend about 15 minutes on each one of these, because I don't want to make it super duper long. I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. Let's make a new canvas. Let's do 2000 by 2000. So you're talking about more cartoonish hair? And Ella, you're asking shading like on a person and how to do shadows on that. Okay, I can go over the basics of that, Ella. I have 2 tutorials that will actually teach you how to do this also. Let me just open them quickly. So I'll show you where they are. Okay, so if you jump over to my channel and you go to playlists, and where did it go? Tutorial Tuesday. Oh wow, these are my old ones. You can see they're old ones because it was basically just a screen recording. Okay, there is. Don't move. Shoo! Don't do that. You want to look at object grid mapping for shading. It's a longer one, a bit more tedious, but it works well. And then fast shading for gesture drawings. Those 2 will also help you a lot. I'll go over basic body shading though. You also want to learn the anatomy. Excuse me. You also want to learn basic anatomy, because if you know how the muscles curve and how, you know, muscle fat sits on the body, it'll be a lot easier to actually do stuff. I'm going to keep this down here in case anybody asks me questions, so I can just shoo you away to a tutorial if I don't have time to do it today. Okay, let's do this thing. Photoshop, are you going to take time today? Photoshop, my current version, is an older one. It's six years old. Oh my god, it's a 6-year-old version of Photoshop. So sometimes it can get cranky and take way too much time to do things. Hopefully we won't deal with that today. Okay, I'm drawing in white. I was about to say, wow, it started its shenanigans really early today, but it's because I was using white to draw. Where did I put the Wacom pen? Ah, there it is. Let's get going. So, character design, and making a good variation of character design. Okay, so you're talking about variety of proportions. The first thing I want to talk about, we're essentially going to be learning like a slightly Pixar-esque techniques here. Okay, so I'm going to start up with a lineup. What I would suggest for you to do first, actually no, let's just go to very basic shape design. So there are multiple different shapes that you can use, right? But the 3 basic shapes in nature that we kind of pay attention to in the back of our mind are circles and soft shapes, triangles, and squares. Now, circles are rounded, safe, cute. What's another good way? Safe, cute. It's actually, if you think about the features of a baby, they're all very rounded. Innocent, young, that kind of stuff. So yeah, literally visually, it has soft edges. There's nothing about this shape that can really hurt you. Let's jump over to the square for a moment. Square is a very strong shape, and stubborn, set in its ways. That's a very good way of putting it. So strong, stubborn, set in its ways, sometimes kind of obtuse. And I'll actually be able to pull up images and show you this later, like how this applies. And triangle, and also like if you think this, if you put a triangle through, if you put triangles through this and make it into a box, this is often a shape that we use for construction. It inherently has a lot of strength to it. And stability. Stability is a big one. I wrote that wrong. Now, the last basic of the 3 shapes, it's like the primaries of shapes if you want to think about it that way, is the triangle. In nature, triangles are very sharp. Like, this is kind of the sharpest edge you can get without really adjusting it more like this. Those sharp angles, by instinct, are dangerous to us because that shape can cut our flesh. So the dangerous, you often see triangles used in bad guy designs. It has a general negative connotation. Negation? I just mixed negative and connotation and I made it into negation. That was completely accidental. Dangerous, bad guy, negation, predator, sharp. So how does this apply to design language? Let's pop this open for a hot second and I want to show you up. Now, let's get a lineup of them. I'm presuming you guys have seen up? If you've seen up, just raise your hands in the comment section, because this is kind of important. Red, you specifically. Well, I'm just going to presume that you've seen up. Okay. So, if you remember the personality of the young boy, super duper bubbly, right? Super bubbly, young, innocent, baby-like. Look at all the design language on his body. Almost everything about him is rounded. His face, his ears, even though he's a Boy Scout, there are multiple rounded buttons all over him. So, his entire character design is ovals. If you remember the old man, he's stubborn, grumpy, kind of crotchety. Look at his face. His face is literally a giant rectangle, as is his body. Pixar's very, very good with using their shape language for things like this. Grumpy, grumpy, grumpy. Even in the way their posture works. Little kid going, wah, upwards motion. Grumpy guy going, urgh, because he's grumpy like that. But there's also a rounded nose, so you can see that there is amount of safety to him. There's basically no triangles in his design language. Now let's look at our bad guy. First of all, his face is skull-like, which is not a good vibe. but he has that sharp pointy cane. And if you look at if he was standing straight like this, like just straight with his feet together, broad shoulders leading down to very pointy feet. So his entire body is based on a kind of big triangle. And his face, if you kind of wanted to, that fits more into a triangle square. Is there a picture of him just standing straight up? I don't see it. Okay. Now let's look at, here's another one. Let's look at Inside Out. Inside Out is super, super duper useful for this. Anger. Literally a walking square. You have, I think it's fear. Fear is actually a bunch of long, thin triangles. Sadness is circles and squares. Disgust is a circle and a triangle. She has a very interesting character design. It's contrasting. Because if you think about it, disgust isn't really a dangerous thing, but it's still seen as a negative thing. So that's why they used rounded and yet triangular shape design for her. And then we have joy, which is, she has a big, big happy round face and big round eyes. So actually, if you want to talk about character design and color design, these 5 characters are some of the most absolutely quintessential forms of shape design language. Okay. So now it's a little bit... is that concept art? No, these are products. Never mind. Shoot, no products. Get out of here, capitalism. Okay. So when you design your characters, Red, I want you to think about those shapes and how you can apply them. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a fun exercise to help with this. And if you notice, a lot of... Okay, what you want to start doing... I'm jumping around. I'm trying to think of the most efficient way to say this. Have you guys noticed? I will say, the beginning of a sentence, then I'll stop and immediately jump to a completely different sentence. It drives me nuts, but I do it all the time. Okay, so what I want you to do is make a height chart first. So this is just generally the middle. This almost looks like how they used to... Lord! I have no idea what I just wrote. It looks like Lofcar. It looks almost like the cursive sheets they used to give us. So come up with a height sheet and start off with a basic person, right? You know, just head, shoulders, knees, and toesies. Okay. Yeah, but just a basic, person. Sometimes it's actually more, it's easier to do just the silhouette and say, okay, this is my John Smith. This is just the very basic character that I'm working with right now, right? And he is not the tallest. He's a little bit taller than average, but he's not the tallest. The next one, try to think of adjectives. Is adjective the word or adverbs? I think it's adjective, the word. This sucks. I'm an author, but I don't know anything about the English language. Okay, so basic, right here. And now we're going to go to strong. So if you have a strong character, think about what that means. They're probably going to have more of a square character design. Kind of more strong, square-looking face. Their posture might be their legs sticking outwards. And bigger arms. So you want to play with these silhouettes first to get a basic kind of outline for what your character should look like. And now what about sneaky? Maybe they would have a curved back and they're looking in another direction because they're like, ooh, I'm super sneaky. And since it's a sneaky person, we can I don't know, let's extend their face a bit. Let's make it a bit more triangular. You know who this looks like? This looks like Doofenshmirtz. And they're holding their hands like this. Yeah, it looks a bit like Doofenshmirtz. Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated After Hours. I have that stuck in my head for the longest time. I'm going to add more triangles over here. But so take those shapes and take the personality of your character and just mix them together into something that makes sense, and then start doing the fine-tuning of the design. Yeah, Doofenshmirtz. Wazzle's adding a good point. Brad Bird films like The Incredibles, another good place to look for character design. Very good point. Now there's another trick you can do, and this is more of an exercise to get your mind into a more flexible state of learning. I like calling it the shape game. What I want you to do is come up with one of your characters, because you say you're struggling making them look different, right? Come up with a single character and draw their normal face. I'm going to use Eidolon for my example, because he has a very, consistent face shape. Apart from the fact that he doesn't even have a mouth, but So here we have Eidolon's face. So I know that his face shape is generally circular on top with a strong jaw from the front, and then strong cheekbones coming down, nose and eyes are pretty well spaced. He's looking at very ideal proportions. What I do with the shape game is I'll be like, okay, let's put a really long square here. Let's make a flat square, or let's make like a flatter quadrilateral. Let's make a perfect circle. Let's make a weird oval. Let's make a long oval. Let's make a triangle. And so essentially what you want to do is you want to start playing with the proportions. And I'm not talking about saying like, okay, he has even proportions, so I guess his nose is going to go over here and his eyes will still go over here, right? No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. Because when you split the face up here, I should probably go and teach this first. When you split the face up, you want to not have any two things quite the same size, or at least have one thing that's very, very differently sized if you want to go for more cartoony stuff. This is actually even in like more realistic Pixar films, you'll still see stuff like this. To create visual interest, you want to vary the size of different features. So for instance, I'm playing with this one first. Let's split the face into thirds and down by half. So generally, eyes, nose, mouth, right? In this situation, what if we made the eyes super duper tiny compared to a massive honking nose, and then we could either make the mouth even bigger or we could make the mouth kind of small. See, that's a lot more visually interesting than just going like, okay, eyes over here, nose over here, mouth over here. Like varying the size, proportions, even the distances up and down. We could even make this super high. Like let's make his eyes all the way up here, for instance. And he's kind of pissed off in this one. Make his eyebrows super, super large. Add in a rounded curve. And now make, really, really push his hair out of proportion, right? Yeah, Miller, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your first name. Alan Nicole? Yeah, that's why Mike Wazowski was never scary, and that's why Sully isn't that scary either. It's because they both have either squarish or rounded character designs. Sully does have some spikes on him, but if you notice, they're not that sharp. Sully was never meant to be a scary character. So yeah, so we turned the first one into that. He doesn't have a mouth, so I can't really, do anything with a mouth. For this one, I want to give him, let's make the nose really, really far down. Just like this. And then we can put the eyes coming this way. He's sad in this one. And then maybe his hair straight down. So really playing with that box design. I'm going to give him a mouth just for explanation's sake. And for rounded, maybe itty bitty eyes like this. And a giant nose coming down. And play with your shape design too. I know I'm using a lot of squares for noses, but what if we did something like this? And even curved it like that. And put the smile over here. So you have these tiny little eyes, big smile, and now like maybe only a small amount of hair. This is starting not to look like him, but you're really, really becoming more flexible with your shape design. So that's what I want you to do, Red. Next time you design a character, take one of them. Actually, no, even take an OC you have right now and do the shape game. Really play around with their silhouettes first and use those 3 shapes that I just told you about. And then play around with this. And even though I'm not saying that you have to use one of, something like this as your character design, but if you find something that really works, say the square one feels really good, take that and mold it with your original to be able to just stretch out and accentuate the facial features a little bit more. Like, I don't know, how would I combine these two that I just made? Why is I was about to say my toothbrush. Why is my eraser brush so desaturated? So for instance, I'll be like, okay, so we're going to make a slightly longer face shape then with a little bit more of a square face design, and this will come down like this. And maybe give him a little bit of a longer nose. Strong, you know, strong jawline coming down over here. And suddenly, and you know, more dramatic hair, and suddenly this down here is more visually interesting than the first little sketch I did. So what I did was I was able to marry these two together and add it into the center. So it just makes for, you know, more variety. Remember to, okay, so how am I going to summarize this? Split your face into the sixths, make sure to vary the proportions, vary the distances, vary the sizes, and make sure to use your design language. Did that help? I'm going to move on to the next one because that's kind of the basics of variety in character design. There's also like how, you know, there's also character posture. I could talk about that for like half an hour to an hour just straight up on character posture, but I kind of want to be able to get to other people too. Okay. Lesson number 2, shading. Okay, I'm just gonna have to draw a quick person. Give me a moment, guys. Let's draw a human being. Kind of want to make them really dramatic. Okay, so I'm gonna wha like that. Nope. Wha. Body. We're gonna arch that body like crazy. One leg coming out this way. One leg going like this. Plant that foot. Plant that foot. Arms. Okay, muscles. Hand coming out like this. Oh no, what are they doing? What are they doing? I don't know what this person's doing. I just need to refine it. Okay, so that's my base pose. That leg's too big, so let me highlight it. Yoink. Yeah, right about there. That should be good. Yep. That's better. Okay, so basic human shading. Let me lower the opacity on this, make it a little bit more realistic. Only a little bit more realistic. Where? Oh, I'm still in lasso tool. Okay, so I'm going to go over the male shading. Who is this? Ella? Ella, are you talking about female or male body shading, or just shading in general? Because I can do a female too, since we have 15 minutes. Okay, yeah. Sometimes I forget which way hands point, and I'm like, am I doing this right? Actually, one of my closest friends got absolutely ridiculed during art class. Female mostly. Okay, so let us make this a. I'm gonna make this a female bodybuilder. That's way too high for a boob. It means we have to make this shoulder a little bit smaller. Ah, hell yes. We love ourselves some muscular women. I usually don't draw hips. Hips are a pain in the butt for me. Actually, technically, hips would be a pain in the hip for me. Okay, there we go. There's going to be a little bit of a muscle distinction there, and her leg will be coming down this way. That's too skinny. That's too skinny. I should have warmed up before I started this. Okay, so I'm gonna put the foot box over here. Ankle comes upwards. It's a substandard drawing for me, I'm sorry. Usually I do things a little bit more accurately, but this feels so freaking wonky. Okay, let's give her some freaking shorts or something so she's not just. And let's give her a bra. A jog bra. There we go. Gotta give our lady some decency. Okay, so general female shading. It's not just general female shading I think you're worried about, it's shading in general. You know what I'm talking about. For shading women, let's see. You do want to have slightly softer shadows depending on your situation though. Like it all comes down to the context of your shading. But let me put a gray layer beneath this. One thing are you working digitally, Ella? Because this is a huge trick. Putting a gray layer beneath your drawing or a colored layer beneath your drawing, because then it gives you room to make highlights. Where did my brush go? There it is. Okay. Okay, good. Use this trick. Very super useful. Putting a gray layer beneath something. It's kind of like drawing on gray tone paper. Okay, let me turn down my opacity a little bit. So when you shade, I want you to think of the body in 3D, and I'll show you what I mean like that. First of all, we're going to need a light source. I'm going to put the light source directly over her. Let me grab yellow or something. Ugh, I don't like that yellow. So I'm going to make sure to put in my light source here. I'm imagining, I just like making a literal lamp so that I can keep track of light direction. Or at least that's how I do it when I teach. Usually when I draw for myself, it's just in my head, but it's very good for just explaining things. So the human body is three-dimensional, and sometimes it can be difficult to map it out. So what you want to do, think of the human body as a bunch of tubes that have indentations in it. So right now we're looking at her arm. Her arm is a tube like this, and then we have the background of the tube like that. And it's a little bit further away in perspective for us up here, so it's going to go like that, and then background like that. And so what you're seeing here is just the shape of the tube warping with the muscle. Just like that. And if you split it down the lengthwise, so you're going to have the most close to the top kind of edge over there, and then they'll get wider and wider from each other as they come closer and closer to you in perspective. So this is your center line right over here. Now you can use that to calculate where the shadow is falling. Like I'm gonna make a layer. Is that the layer I want? No. I have so many layers that I haven't named. I'm gonna get so freaking confused. Okay, so I'm gonna use this as a shadow color. And I'm going to gently put in a shadow under the arm here, and then it'll come out. Now in women this is less pronounced because we don't generally build as extreme muscles as guys do. So just make the edges of the shadows a bit softer. And then you can put in your highlight, and since it's a yellow light, we're just going to use a yellow highlight too. Again, kind of gentle, soft. That's not gentle nor soft. That's like saying gently, softly when you're using a chainsaw. What is that? That's my blending brush. I'm just going to drop the opacity. Yeah, gentle, soft highlights. Now, when you want to learn how to shade and draw women, the best thing might be just to learn how to draw women in general. There's going to be a highlight on the top of the breast, but remember the breast is circular. So just kind of like shading an orb, there's going to be the highlight on top, and then you're going to get some shadow underneath. Like that, and the midtones coming up through a gradient in the middle. Shush you. No bedinging at me today. It is not a day for bedinging. Same thing kind of with the face. Just a little bit softer, gentler shading. Because like guys have that crazy muscle definition that is more natural to them than it is for women. The real difference actually in male and female anatomy just comes in the slightly more, it's the slightly more softness of the figure, but also the chest area. Like, they don't have the kind of boobies we have. So that's really the biggest difference. We almost always have a bit of a tummy. If you don't, you're very thin or very, 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 you know, like not thin in a bad way, but, you know, like very athletic, like Olympian level athlete. There's going to be a mild amount of shading down there. Then there's going to be a lot of shading in here because the groin area kind of just folds inwards. And then a little bit of a shading crease if you are moving. Like if you just look at yourself actually. If you are, I'm presuming you're a girl, I'm sorry. If you look at yourself, you are one of the best references you have. And so if you lift your leg, you'll see that there's a crease running from almost any angle. And so you want to put that crease in for shading. And then this area will be kind of flat as it moves upwards, and there will be shadow beneath the breast. And then same thing, shadow wrapping on the bottom of the arms. When it comes to arms and legs, just treat them like cylinders with mild, you know, shape changes in them. The difficult part of shading really comes in with like the chest and the face. And the back. Backs are like ridiculously difficult to shade. And this right over here, this leg is pointing downwards, so the shin's gonna have shading on it. And kind of the top of the knee box. Ever so mildly shading. This is a kind of more muscular girl, so mild shading where the quadriceps are, but not too much. And again on the bottom, and then cut right below. And then a tiny bit under that knee as it comes downwards. Remember that this is actually something I'm guilty of. Sometimes I don't shade where I need to shade simply because in my mind, if it's not in direct darkness, then obviously there's light hitting it, right? You have to look at the values of your light from the very brightest to the very darkest. Technically, our very brightest right now is this yellow. So all the way up here, let me bring the opacity all the way high up. So all the way high up, highest point of reflectivity, right? That's where the light comes down and bounces directly from the object into your eyeball. Highest point of light. And then we have our darkest shadows. So we're looking at a gradient of everything in between these two. Let's see if I can just bring it downwards. And lighter, 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 lighter. And then darker, 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 darker coming up. And then we have these as our midtones. So that's a silly looking gradient. Where's my blur tool? Can I blur this back and forth? Do I have the permission to turn this into an actual gradient? That looks really weird. It's like a psychedelic bumblebee. Okay. Come on, give me a gradient to work with. Ah! Okay, so that's generally what we're working with right there as gradients goes. And that's a super silly looking gradient. Just use your imagination. So right over here, the shin doesn't have any light like falling on it, so it is going to be slightly in shadow. And that's literally just my own problem that I always do for myself. I've been trying to break that habit for a long time. And then so you're going to get a high amount of reflectivity over here and here, along the nose bridge, along the corner of the face, cheeks, maybe a little bit over there, but it's going to start falling away once you get to the other side of the face. Yeah, shading, how to shade women is pretty specific. You're looking at just in general how to shade. There's going to be a highlight running down the leg, for instance, but it's not going to be super powerful because at this point, our light is falling down and diffusing and losing potency. So make sure to make this highlight down here not as high as the ones that you have up here. And same thing, nice bright highlight on the hair, but then of course it goes kind of woo at the side. And then you can start adding in more shadows. So that's kind of how I approach shading women. I think the bigger thing you want to look into, Ella, is the anatomy of women, because shading is just a technique in general to show volume. You need to know the volume of the thing you're looking at in the first place to understand how it works. Now, if you ask me how to shade wood or a different material, that's another thing entirely, because that's literally material shading versus shading a human being with flesh and anatomy. Like, if somebody asked me how to shade a dog, I would answer with a pretty... I'm sorry if this seems unpleasant. I don't mean to be unpleasant at all. Like, if somebody asked me to, how to shade a dog, I would be like, okay, well, this is how the anatomy of the dog works. And this is, learn the anatomy and it'll help you learn the shading. So I think that's where I want to point you, is there's a marvelous website called lineofaction.com, and I believe it's linked in the Discord. I don't know if you're part of our Discord, but it's definitely linked in the Discord. And it gives you models, and you can choose if they're male or female, if they have clothes on or not, their age range, anything really. And it'll let you just sit there and look at women and how to draw them. And I would highly recommend that you use that website for learning generally how to shade women. But yeah, chest area, treat them like kind of two saggy but rounded balloons in a way, unless they're super duper perky. And what other places are we looking at? Ah, I did not mean to pick up that color. And yeah, if you asked me how to shade a man, I would do the exact same thing, but just for a guy. I'm sorry. This is a slightly specific, more specific question. It also depends on your shading technique. Are you going more realistic? Are you going more cartoony? Are you using cell shading? There's so many different ways that I could answer this question, just depending on what you wanted to learn. Like, it's shading is just the technique for showing something in 3D. But yeah, if I approach shading women, that's kind of what I do. Like just what you just saw me do. Okay, Ella, you're saying that you are in the Discord. Go to the Welcome and Rules page, and if you scroll down, there's a resource section. Lineofaction.com is in that resource section. Error is asking, do you have a tutorial on shading? I do, and I showed it off earlier, but I'll pull it up one more time. If you go into the tutorials playlist on my YouTube, it's basically a longer version of what I just taught. Object grid mapping for shading is a good one. There is fast shading for gestures, which I think will be the most useful one. Realism Basics has how to shade in it, but only for realism. Grayscale shading walkthrough is very useful. Shading in perspective. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Shading in perspective is extremely useful as well. So I do have quite a few videos that involve shading and how to improve your shading technique. So I would kind of peruse through that particular playlist. What else is there? Yeah, I think those are the particular ones I have at the moment. Basic rim lighting is also a really good one to learn for shading. It teaches kind of what I was doing over here, but to a more extreme point. Okay, I'm gonna hide all of these. And wait, let's look at the next one. Next inquiry. What is cell shading? Oh, you see cell shading in anime a lot. It's do I have anything that's cell shaded? Let's peruse through my folders. Okay, so for instance, this is, come here, Yadalon. This is realistic shading. It looks quite realistic, right? Good morning. This is kind of like cell shading. You see how instead of a gradient across these two, it's one large pane of light differentiating from one thing to the other. This isn't a very good example of it. I usually don't use cell shading for things. Hey, shoo you. This is kind of cell shading, but it's to an extreme. You can see that instead of gradients, it's blocks of color defining a shape. Yeah, you see it in anime a lot. Anime, game design. Yeah, I don't know if I have any direct. Oh, wait a moment. I cell shade in my webtoon. What am I talking about? Would it be in old art? Do I have anything in old art that's cell shading? Okay, this is cell shading. It's a very bad drawing. I'm sorry that I'm showing this to you guys, but see how the shadow is just, solid shapes? That's what cell shading is. I remember I was doing this so I could show my ex how to animate, because he really wanted to animate my character, and so I was trying to do a front view for him. Oof, that was a mistake. Do I have any other good examples of cell shading? I don't think I do. Okay, that's okay though.
Oh, excuse me.
Ellipsuon is asking about the Discord link. Let me grab the Discord link. This is actually giving me a little bit of a break. Good morning. Okay. I don't know why I have that stuck in my head right now. Okay, so... let's see. Let me just give you the link to that. This link is good for 5 people. Hopefully you can grab it in time, because some people just they'll grab it on purpose, and it's kind of obnoxious. So hopefully you'll be able to grab this. Like, you're supposed to ask for the Discord link instead of you know, just snatching up somebody else's. But here, Ellipsuon. Here is the link to the Discord. Mouse Prince, you're asking, do you have any tips for shading with pure black like superhero comics? If you come next, I think we're already going over one of your things. So if you come next week and ask it again, I can answer that to you, but I have to get to other people's stuff first, just to be fair. So the next thing we're going over is hair. And interestingly enough, I am not the best person at drawing hair, but I know the basics of it, so I will do my best to teach you. What brush are we using? Okay, we're using this brush. So you were talking more about cartoony hair, right? What kind of cartoon? There are many different kinds of cartoons. Are you talking about a more detailed anime-like cartoon? Are you talking about something like Steven Universe? Something more like anthro or furry art? Like, there's people have to start being a bit more specific, because art is like any other industry or any other facet of life. It expands upon so many different things. Long hair is hard to make interesting. More anime-like. I don't often do anime hair, I'll be completely honest, but I can try going a bit into shape language. I don't know if this is going to be super helpful or not. Let's make some heads. Okay. Are you talking about like wavy or just straight hair? Are you talking about like somebody who has really straight hair and you just don't know how to make the super straight hair look nice? This is a really, really weird looking face. I just got something in my eye. Have you guys just like been sitting around doing nothing and suddenly something just comes into your eye and you're like, what the frick was that? This is my best attempt at anime. I'm not kidding. I just don't know how to draw anime. It's nothing, it's one of those art styles that I always appreciate when I look at it, but I personally cannot do it. Whenever I try making anime, it ends up looking weird as heck. Oh, it looks like a fish. It's a fish person. And then they do it like that. What even is anime? I cannot draw anime for my life. Okay, I'm just gonna keep it as a flat face so I can save my own face. Anime leaning towards realistic. I don't know if this might be one of the questions that I actually can't answer. Let's see if there are any good tutorials online. Because the problem is people will ask me things and I don't always have an answer for them. Because I do have knowledge gaps. I'm more of a tradition, like, not old-fashioned, slightly more realism artist. It looks like a lot of anime hair is very strandy. Triangles, lines, wild, blurry rectangles, question mark, and a mix. It's such a beautiful art form. I just never went in and dedicated how to actually do it. Okay, I think I know what I'm gonna do. So you're talking about like taking normal hair and just turning into something more interesting. Remember how we were talking about shape language with your circles, your triangles, and your rectangles? I'd say try incorporating the hair to have a movement to it. You could technically just, you know, do your face with, you know, maybe some bangs in it, and then, you know, the long hair just coming down like this. And I think that's what you're talking about. I obviously can't presume, but I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. That makes it look a bit more boring. Maybe try giving it some movement. Or asymmetry. Why is this brush erasing so slowly? So maybe from the side, usually when I draw hair, I draw in an action scene, not the person just standing. Let's imagine that this person is just, you know, kind of leaning against the wall. That's a super duper long neck. Okay. I'm just imagining that this character is leaning against the wall, right? So technically their hair wouldn't have much interest to it. I would suggest, and let me choose a nice hair color for this. I would suggest to try to give it a bit of visual interest. So maybe push it upwards. Let me zoom in. Push it upwards, for instance, and then let it fall down in a curvy way. And don't just have it go directly behind the shoulders. Pay attention to how the hair sags. So it'll come this way, but then get caught on the shoulders and move backwards. And maybe this can partially overlay the face, and then you can have a strand going forwards instead. So think about the placement of the hair physically on the person's body. And maybe you could have another strand coming like that, separating itself, deviating from the rest of them. So I don't know if I can do a tutorial, but I can give suggestions on how I usually approach it. If it's, you know, in the wind, you might want to have a piece of hair falling across the face itself. Like, if it's going to come up this way, maybe have one dangling across the face. And really pay attention, like, look at references of really wind-blown hair. Let's go. Oh my gosh, some of these are ridiculous. All of these people have pretty long hair, right? And it's pretty average kind of hair. But whoa, holy crap, that's gorgeous. Oh my god, how is that real? Geez, that woman has a head of hair. That must take so much time to actually clean. Oh my gosh, and take care of? I could never. Yeah, look at the movement. It's generally you can break up the movement. Poor woman. Generally, you can break up the movement of hair into blocks. So I might, like for instance, first block, largest one, cut sideways. Second block, coming away because our wind direction. What did I just do? Did I just select by accident? Go away. Second block is coming through this way and coming over. And then you might have, okay, the neck is over here. Third block coming across the neck. And it's really going to be wrapping sideways, right? So that's kind of, if you want to give more interest, Try giving it movement instead of making it hang straight. This is unfortunately one of those things that I can't really teach because I don't have that much experience in it. You could also, for long hair, give it braids. That's something I often do for my characters, is they'll have, you know, maybe their hair bound backwards like this into a binding, and then they'll have one bit, you know, coming this way and it has braids going through it. Maybe adding beads. I don't know what kind of main character you're dealing with. But one thing I often do is I never let the hair just hang straight like this. If you notice what I keep doing over and over again, it has movement to it. It has curves. It's kind of like if you're drawing a person just, you know, straight up and down, you know, there's a certain amount of, you know, disinterest and stiffness. So that's why you know, adjust the shoulders and do a contrapposto, for instance, to make the entire image more interesting. And I would say try doing the same thing with your hair. So like stiff versus, you know, stiff versus dynamic. That's technically the word for it, is dynamic. So do the same thing with your hair. Instead of just having it hang down like this and be stiff, that's definitely, that's an accurate face right there. And give it a bit, you know, give it a bit of pizzazz, maybe. Have it hang over and interact with the character. Red, you need, okay, Red, if you can only see 3 channels, that means you haven't read through the welcome and rules yet. To get into the channel, you have to read through them, and it'll tell you how to get in, because there's actually a little interactive thing you have to do to get into the server, and this is to make sure people actually do read the rules, because we've had people coming in and posting in the wrong chat rooms, causing trouble, and this is kind of a security measure to make sure that people actually do read, understand, and adhere to the rules. So yeah, to get in, read that paragraph, and it'll show you how to get in. Okay, yeah, Catermelon, I'm sorry I wasn't able to describe this in a, you know, in a more accurate way. This is something that I'm just not that good at yet. Hair gives me difficulty too. I don't want to leave you dry though. I want to be able to give more resources. I want to see if there's like a really good hair tutorial. Well, there is, but they're all kind of boring. I don't know if this is what you're looking for. Like, there's do's and don'ts of drawing hair. This one looks like it could be good. Let's look at this.
There to create another dimension appear around the face. I'm going for a total realistic go back and just references that you can use.
Okay, this one looks really good. Here, I'm going to take this and drop it for you in the comments section. Here. This looks like it could be good. There you go. I'm going to add this to my other Artschool Sunday, Artist versus Game, Follow Art Critique, Try These Recipes, Tutorials, Artschool Sunday, Art Talk Thursday, Core Basics, Favorites, Music. I'm going to put this in my general art tutorial link.
They just heard my designs clean and simple. I was really enjoying orange or red.
This one looks really good too. Though the way he does eyeballs is super interesting. Like look at the way he puts in his eyes. They're just like little black holes on the face. That's terrifying. Who is this guy? He looks really, really good. Okay, I'm gonna save this also to the art tutorials playlist. And I'm gonna put this into my watch later. It's always fun to keep learning. Awesome sauce. Okay. Come on, go away. There we go. Oh, I didn't mean to delete it. I mean, why am I worrying about deleting it? Well, I'm going to delete the entire thing afterwards. Okay, the next one after that was the basics of clothing and drapery. Oh boy, clothing is difficult. Okay, I'm gonna go over drapery first and just some quick tips that I was taught in college. Art college. Okay, so when it comes to clothing, the fold points are never going to be even. For instance, if you were to, you imagine you have a flat sheet, kind of like this, or maybe let's make it a towel. Yeah, let's make this a towel. If you grabbed the towel on both edges and lifted it, say, you come in here with your hands and just kind of, grab it like underwards like this. It's going to fold downwards, obviously. Let's put in the other arm over here just for clarity. It's going to fold downwards, and these sides are going to kind of push this way. What we're going to see is the wrap. It's going to always fold outwards. And what I mean, what's a better way to put this? Okay. Like, how would we just go over basic folds first? I'm getting way ahead of myself. Okay. So if you have, let's use a skirt. That's a way better analogy. A skirt hanging down like this. You might, if it's a tight skirt, obviously it's just going to be like this, but let's make it a really floofy skirt. What you're going to do is your folds are not going to be even like this. What you're going to have is them coming out in more of a V shape. So you're going to get long triangles instead of long squares. I'm completely losing it today. I'm sorry, guys. So you're going to want to start with a basic triangle shape, and it's going to come downwards. And instead of making box shapes like this, where you're having a general rectangle, you're going to be having more like triangle shapes, and it's going to come outwards in V shapes. And so when it comes down, take that triangle shape, extend it all the way downwards, and make a kind of rounded shape over here, and put it upwards again. Take this, come down, rounded shape on the bottom, and upwards. This, come down, and rounded shape on the bottom. I think these are called pleats. So let's get a highlight color. It's coming this way. If we're going to draw lines to make this make more sense, let's draw a few lines here and there. It's coming around and folding, and then under the fold in here, it's going to come out like this. I always find when doing complicated folds, it's a lot easier to draw through it. This is called like drawing through a figure. There. So that shows the, movement that the fabric is taking right now. And then for the bottom, if you're going to solidify what you just drew, harsh line going on the bottom, coming upwards, and then there's going to be another one going inwards, and it's going to interplay between these in and out kind of folds. You can put another one over there, and put another one over there. So that's a good example just generally how to draw a piece of fabric. Say that you're drawing drapery coming down. You have a table over here. Come on, you. Yeah, tabletop like this. And I don't know, maybe somebody put a desk weight right over here. And so the fabric is going to move around. Again, instead of, having these straight folds coming down, the folds will all converge to the point that they're being pinched at and come down like this. Remember, it's triangles. The fabric should be a bunch of different triangles. So coming down like that and hitting the edge of the table, and then we have it draping downwards, right? So the way it's going to fall, I'm imagining that this is coming over this way, coming down, and it's going to have a general wider curve like this. And maybe we can put a bunch of other small ones this way. So make your general triangle shapes again. Wide open, tiny, wide open, tiny, like that. So you're looking at an interplane. You can actually even make like a super cool ribbon shape. Oh, and then there's going to be a whoomph coming up that way. You can make a super cool ribbon shape or anything like that just by taking your imaginary piece of fabric and going like this. And this is fun, because now what you do is you drive upwards the lines that are supposed to be on the outside. Like that, and that, and that. This is also how you draw cliff sides, ironically. But, and then you can take your eraser and take out the lines in between. And suddenly, once you imagine that bottom edge and how the bottom of the fabric, like the bottom plane of the fabric itself, is folding, you can literally make a really cool curtain shape. Make sure to add in your tension points. Mitsuki Mochi, you're asking for the Discord link. It's the link that I posted, like 2 or 3 messages up from you, should last for 5 different people. So click on it and see if it still works. What? Oh, somebody's outside of the house. Okay. Now, when we're talking about something like ribbons, imagine that you have a piece of ribbon. And if you looked at it from the top, you would have... I'm going to actually make it 2 different colors, so it's easier to see this. This is one edge, and I'm going to make the other edge green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the pinkish edge first. We're going to run it down, let it go woo like this, and then from the side. What we're going to do is basically the same thing with the green edge, except following it. It's going to go that way and then push outwards, come over, wrap. It's going to get flat though. Actually, I want to make it go backwards. Wrap, it's going to go flat, do a little switcheroo over here, and come show its other side. Go flat again, underwards, and then we can even twist it and make it come up on the other side. And let's take our black lines and connect that all together. So front, back, and now if we're going to shade it, imagine our light source is coming from up top, right? Do. So you're going to get highlights along the top of the fabric right over here, and it's going to get lower and lower and lower, then maybe a little bit of highlight over here, and a lot of highlight over here, but the shadow is being cast down that way. And then there's maybe a tiny bit of shadow there. And then we're going to grab our shading color. I'm going to make the shading color kind of bluish. And you're going to get some shadows laying in here, coming upwards, some shadows laying in here, and then a lot of shadow in here. A little bit less, and a lot of shadow. Yeah, somebody last week asked me about cloth, but I think what I should just do is make a full-on tutorial about cloth, because it's a difficult thing to draw with. Like, if we're going to shade these curtains that we made, for instance, the deep folds in here are going to have a high amount of shadow in them. Like that. So you recess them using darkness. And same thing over here. You're going to recess these folds using darkness, and it's going to come up and just kind of meet with its neighbor. There's going to be some dark over here, some dark over here, a little bit of dark along this edge, a little bit in here, but not too much, and then a lot in here, but kind of getting lighter as it moves out to the edge. So yeah, fabric, no cap, pain in the ass. It's difficult to learn. I'm still not that good at it. There's so many different weird little subtleties when it comes to fabric. Let's put a giant piece of shadow right along the middle right here. Okay, so like a shirt. Let's jump over to shirts quickly then. There. Let me quickly draw a shirt then. Like a regular, like not too tight but not too loose kind of shirt, I'm guessing. Let me draw a slightly darker gray character here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a character sitting at a dinner table. Error. I don't know how to call you. Error or just error. So we're going to look at a, just a regular looking person sitting at a table. And they're coming over here and then just blop, boing, like that. Okay, so this is our character right now. Just sitting at a table. Give them a little bit of a male chest and hands and everything. Other arm is coming this way, maybe a glass of water, a sword. No, we're not going to draw a sword. Why do I always want to draw swords? Okay, so quick little character over here. How I would approach drawing a shirt. Let's do like a mid-sleeve shirt, kind of like what I'm wearing right now. So what you need to think about, and use yourself as reference. People underestimate the power of having themselves sitting right in front of them as a drawing tool. So when I hold out my arm like this, okay, first of all, look, when my arm is down, this is a super loose shirt, but it's generally not causing that many folds. When I lift my arm up, the fabric starts pulling up against and folding down and down. Look at all the triangles in here, like all the different angles of triangles. And now when I bend my arm, it all bunches up. It stretches along the back, but it bunches up in the crook of the elbow. So whenever you're drawing clothing, if you're having difficulty, literally look at yourself. Maybe even get similar clothing if you can. So using what we just learned from literally just looking at how the fabric sits on my body, we can see that there's probably going to be just a few lines coming down this way. Since the arm is moving forward, it's causing the fabric to fold along those tension points of the body. So that was interesting. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of a fold over here, and you can see immediately there's a triangle right there. A lot of fabric folds is basically just triangles. And make sure to put a little, ruffle along the top of your fold areas. Now it's being stretched along the top of the shoulder, right? So you're not going to see much there, but it's coming down, and you're going to see a little bit of a bunching right along here as it folds. And now this is where you start drawing your triangles. All these little triangles. You want to put them in right over there. And then it's going to bunch up again because all that fabric is essentially being pushed to one single angle like this. And then it's going to come down and hang loosely, and there's going to be a tension point over here and a tension point coming back up like this. Now, same thing's going to happen on the back of the body, and also put in your little tension points over here as well. That's a little bit too accentuated. So it's going to come up like this, and maybe a few over that way because it's pulling the fabric down. You're going to get more bunching happening right over here, a little bit of looseness coming up tight against the shoulder, but maybe one or two pulling marks down that way. And then looseness, and it's going to fall against the table. Now if you look at it coming down this way, it's going to be kind of loose because we have this tension point above the shoulder, but it's going to be loose after that. Imagine this person's wearing a belt and they've tucked their shirt into the belt. So what is going to happen? What did I just do? That's not what I meant to do. Okay. What's going to happen is the shirt's going to get some slack. It's going to get loose because it's not being stretched along the body anymore. The person's basically curling over, lifting their legs up, which is making the fabric loose. It's not getting to stretch as much. So there's going to be folds coming down this way. And again over here, folds coming that way. And it's going to be a little bit loose, coming and draping off of the pectorals. So what I want you to do, Error, is when you're looking at your characters, look at their poses and physically look at how your fabric on your body moves and find the tension points, like on top of shoulders, at the edge of elbows, and then the loose points, the bunching points, which is the inside of the elbows. It's along the shoulder blades as it moves. And yeah, that's one of the best ways I can put it. Quickly, I'll do the pants too, because the pants actually have really good tension points as well. Let's imagine they're wearing jeans. So normally when they're standing straight with jeans, there's some tension points around the groin. That's why it stretches like this. The belt, there might be a tension point or two up there. It's coming downwards. And then it gets loose and the fabric hits their foot and it literally folds over itself like this. So you get, essentially what I did for that shape is I did zigzag zig like that, because that's how the fabric would be folding in front of a shoe. That's kind of a general shape. It's a very messy, sloppy version of the shape, but if you need to do it quickly, that's how it works. And so you're going to have a huge amount of like folds over here, as the fabric is stretched by the leg being forced into essentially a 90-degree angle towards the body. This is going to be this is going to have a lot of tension because it's now being pulled over the butt. The knee is going to have a lot of tension. And then you're going to get folds over here, and then it'll come downwards and get a little bit loose again over the feet. So that's kind of how I draw fabric, is I just physically imagine, like I do a simulation in my head and see how it pulls and moves around the body. Ellipson is saying maybe ones where the figure is having their arms in different places, if their pose is scrunched up. I mean, same thing in general, just same exact rules apply. The more scrunched up the arm is, the more folds you're going to get. Like imagine if the person is like this, like with their head over here looking down at something, they're, you know, imagine they're leaning over an edge looking at something, kind of like that. And so their arm is really, really dramatically like this, you know, hanging over the edge. So they're looking down at something. And let me continue that edge that way just to make sense. So in this situation, it would be severe folding, and then you would get buckling. Because there's not only folding of the fabric, there's buckling of the fabric. Because I just showed you how it looks. I know, I'm sorry I'm wearing black. This is so loose that it's not that good of an example. So there, you know, there's loose folding that's happening right over here. But then, get out of here, you are so fluffy. But then you get, come on, where's my camera? But then you get buckling, which is where the fabric begins literally getting a back fold over the long edge. So what I would do in this situation, super strong, and then kind of like that. Super strong, it would come and buckle again. And then over here, it's kind of, you know, it's coming over their wrist, but then it's laying flat, and so you're going to get folds like this. The best, honest to goodness, I'm going to keep saying this to a lot of people, the best way you can see how something is going to work is by simulating it in real life and taking your own reference. You are the most powerful art tool you have. Just make sure, recreate the circumstances that your character has, and take a picture and use that reference to make the folds more accurate and to learn. Okie dokes. Nature. Okay, the last one we have for today. What time is it? It's 2:48, so we are running on a little bit over an hour. Okay. Wait, 2:48? Is my clock behind on my computer? Yeah, because it says 3:48 over here. Wow, my computer did not update its time. You are a $2,500 PC with another $1,000 of upgrades, and you cannot keep up with daylight saving time. Are you freaking serious? Oh my god. My watch did it, but you didn't. Disappointed. Actually, I love you. I love you so much. You let me do literally everything I need to do, but my one small critique, tiny critique, you don't keep up with daylight savings time. Okay, last thing is nature. Let me go quickly into perspective. So I already have a perspective video. God, where'd it go? Yeah, it's one of my more recent videos.
Hello, everybody.
Stop it.
Hello.
No,
Hello, everybody.
I just did the exact same thing.
Hello.
I don't want to see my face this many times in one sitting. Okay, yeah. I do have a basic perspective for if you want to draw cities. It's in the tutorials playlist. And if I don't say so, it's one of my better ones. But, oh look, it's an itty bitty butt. But let's go over it just one more time quickly because it'll actually help with nature. So what you got is your horizon line, right? The horizon line, I'm gonna just horizon, is just the difference between your skybox and the land below it. So that's all, whenever I say horizon line, that's just what I'm referring to. It's this line right over here. Your point of perspective is where everything's going to be disappearing to. So let me erase these. This is a weird frickin' eraser. So for instance, a 1-point perspective, which is what human beings see in, and people might be like, but wait, we have 2 eyes, we're bifocal, But our eyes are basically like this, looking towards everything, and everything's coming in perspective out away from us. If our eyeball, if one of our eyeballs was like way over here and the other eyeball was way over there, we could kind of see in 2-point perspective, but not really. So generally, whenever you're drawing a main character looking at something, it's going to be in 1-point perspective. So we got our main character over here. 1-point perspective means that, let me make perspective lines here. Wee. Wah. What are these weird lines from? Okay, I'll double click then. Okay, and 1-point perspective means that our perspective point will be right over here. Other words for this is like a disappearing point. And so imagine that there's a road. You got your main character here just standing out in the middle of nowhere. The road coming to them will be coming like this. And if you want to draw a building, for instance, it's going to be flat. So essentially you have 2 flat leading lines that will work this way. So I'm gonna... What was that, buddy? I'm going to make the bottom edge of my building like this, and then it'll have a vertical line rising upwards, and the top of the building will be like this. And so essentially what you do is you take that perspective line... No, not like that, buddy. You take the perspective line and you run it to the very top of the building, and then you take this bottom perspective line and you run it to the bottom. And then you can add the other vertical line from the building, and bam, you have a block in perspective. And if you want to give it windows, you do the same thing. You find different points that you want to run your perspective to and from, and those become the perspective lines for the building itself. Like that. Badang! And then you use vertical lines. That was not vertical. You use vertical lines to make windows and stuff, you know, like that. So that's very, very basic, 1-point perspective. Also, if you want to draw a character in perspective, you have to look at the bottom lines here. So this is where they're standing. Let's draw another person right about there. Hello, everybody. Okay, so this is our extremely weird, horribly distorted human being. Now, if we wanted to draw them further away in perspective, we have to remember that this is the top of, this is the bottom of their body, right? So we push that backwards in perspective. This is the top of their body. Push that backwards in perspective. Now, let's say that these are meters. So this is the 0 meter mark. This is 10 meters away, 20, 30, 40. So we want to put them at the 30 meter mark. So right now, this is how tall they are at the 5. And this is where we want to put them in perspective to get their height correctly. You just follow the perspective line backwards, draw a vertical line, and that's how large your character would be at that distance. And that's how you scale things in perspective. 1-point perspective, at least. 2-point perspective is a little bit different. Let's jump over to 2-point perspective quickly. Bleep, doip. We still have the horizon line. It's not math! It's not math! It's all visual. Calm down. And we're going to have 2 focal points this time. One's going to be over here. One's going to be over here. So you still have the skybox working the same way that you did before. What are you talking about? Why are you doing this to me right now? I did not ask for this today. Okay. So 2-point perspective is basically just having 2 different points of perspective. It's really that easy. 3-point perspective means 3 points, and you're starting to get into fisheye perspective when you do that, and it's really weird, and we don't naturally see like that. So Unless you want to do something really cool with your composition, you don't have to worry about 3-point perspective. But you're going to get your vertical lines running up and down here. Come on, you. What's up with you, buddy? Okay. And then your perspective is going to be running towards you like this. And then into the distance. Like that. And then the perspective points get smaller and smaller as they run away. Now what you want to do with this, imagine you had a box, but the box is in perspective. You're going to do the exact same thing, but remember that in 1-point perspective, the front of the box stayed consistent, like this. So you had both horizontal and vertical lines that stayed flat to your vision. In 2-point perspective, only your vertical lines are going to be staying flat. So 1 point, 2 point, because the horizontal lines are going to be stretching in different directions like that. I'll show you what I mean. So let's turn this rectangle on the ground here into a building. We're going to drive this corner upwards like this. So this is the height of the building, right? We're going to push it backwards. So now we have the leading edges of the building. We're going to take the other rear edge of the building and push it upwards. And essentially the top line of the building is going to be that line right there. And that line right there. And now we do the same exact thing over here. We push this generally upward. Make it a little bit lighter though. And now you drive this backwards in perspective. That's a curvy line. Drive this backwards in perspective, right? And now you have these two edges based on your perspective lines. And same exact thing happens before. You use these vanishing points, these perspective points, to put in any sort of line on your building. Like that. Now, what if you wanted to look at it from the top? Same exact thing happens. I'm going to make this building over here, this example. Let's use red this time. So this is the top leading edge, the front leading edge, but it's under the horizon line back here. Realize this building was above the horizon line. Now we're looking at the building below the horizon line. So like last time, we're going to be driving the perspective backwards and using that line right there. So now we have one leading line. And we're going to drive the top backwards in perspective. And we can just push upwards. We have one plane of our building. I'm going to use this over here, and I'm going to, as the other leading edge, and I'm going to push, come on you, I'm going to push this all the way over here. So now we have the other line right there. We can push this upwards. We can take this, drive it backwards in perspective again, and just go, and then the other one we want to do though is we want to drive that point backwards that way. So that's how you draw things in 1-point and 2-point perspective. 2-point can be a teeny bit tricky, but once you get it, you get it. Okay, so that's the very basics of perspective. What about nature? Let's make this Invisibrew. Okay. Drawing nature. You're still going to have a horizon line. That does not change. That never changes. Unless you're in outer space. Outer space is one of the only places where you're not going to have a horizon line because you don't have a differentiation between the sky and the land. So let's just imagine it's grassy plains. So your sky is up here, right? I'm going to show you a really cool trick for drawing cumulus clouds. I'm going to put our perspective point over here. Who keeps walking around outside the front of my house? And we're still going to use these buddy boos right over here. So draw your skybox again. This is called the skybox whenever you draw like a giant open sky like this. And you still want the perspective lines down here. Now what we're going to do though is we're going to use this skybox to draw our clouds in. Let me make these a tiny bit tighter. So good. We have a 1-point perspective skybox. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to how far away things are. So that means the clouds over here. Imagine that your cloud is a cumulus cloud. So it's going to have, or cumulonimbus, that's a storm cloud. It's going to have a flat bottom, and it's going to build upwards like this. Now, if you look at that from underneath, the thing we just drew, it could look something like this, with the big poofy clouds rising above it. Since it's in perspective, we can essentially just take one perspective line and say, okay, this is going to be the back of the cloud, it's going to reach forward, and it's going to hit that part right there. And then draw some, you know, bloop bloop coming underneath, and make it grow upwards like this. I used this technique actually for one particular panel of the webtoon, which I can show you in a hot second. So you know now that this is the bottom of your cloud. Give it some shadow just to make sure you know it's the bottom. Ba-bang, bada-bang, bada-boom, and let it grow upwards a little bit, right? Now for clouds further away in perspective, you're like, oh crap, same exact kind of looking cloud. It's going to be a little bit flatter though. So go like this, and now you can start building it up, and you're going to see more of the top shape. Red 2000's asking, is it a quacking Amazon truck driver? It could be. It could be. But see, now that it's further away in perspective, we're not seeing as much of the bottom of the cloud. So you can actually physically draw in less and do more detailing and shading on the top. And then the clouds way, way in the distance, basically you're only going to be seeing a dark line for their bottom, and you're going to be seeing all of the top parts of them rising up like this. Like that. Also, with atmospheric perspective, these clouds are going to be higher contrast with more white up for the top and more blue for the shadow. And if it's a nice hazy day, the ones way, way, way in the back are going to have a kind of yellowish tone for the to them, and their shadows are not going to be as deep bluish gray. And so let's put a cloud right over here in between this one and this one. So if we look at a perspective line, there's a good perspective line sitting right there, and I'm going to extend it a little bit, and I'm going to make it fit between these two particular lines of perspective. Let's add our shadow. Just like that. And now we can kind of build up the cloud in the way it should be built. Now you can do this at two different levels. So right now we're working with a cloud. Let me just give this guy a little bit more boops. Okay. Right now we're working with, and do I want to put one right over here? I kind of want to put a cloud right over here too. I'm a butt. I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for clouds. Clouds are one of my favorite things to draw. So if you get me starting drawing clouds, I'm not going to stop for a while. But we can add a second layer to these clouds. I'm going to make a layer underneath this one. And so we had our first level coming that way, but now we can drive it upwards and essentially make layer number 2. So let's take this point of perspective, make it go upwards, this one goes upwards, this one goes upwards, and then we can take this line and draw it this way. And suddenly we've created physical boxes hovering in the sky, kind of forming a, come on you, give me a straight line please, kind of forming cubes in a way. And if you want to, if you're having difficulty physically building up the height of a cloud, you can use these. So this is the bottom. Nope, 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 that's not what I meant to do. Come here, buddy. This over here is the bottom of this cloud. I should do this in a layer on top of it, shouldn't I? Okay, this here is the bottom of this cloud, and it ends right about there. You follow the line of perspective, it goes like that. Now, let's push it upwards in the sky. Up, up, come on you. Okay, and I'm going to grab the blue again. That's not what I meant to do. Get out of here. Thank you. I'm going to grab this blue again and push that line upwards. So now we have formed a physical cube just hovering in the sky. And you can use this cube, I'm going to push that other edge back there. You can use this cube to define the shape of your cloud, or maybe a spaceship. I don't even know what you would want to use it for. So you're like, okay, that's the bottom of this cloud, and it's rising upwards and then hitting the top of my cube, right? I need another level to this cloud though. So you're going to do the exact same thing. Push upwards. I grabbed the wrong color. You're going to push up. Not grab the wrong color. Come on, buddy. push upwards like this. Find your perspective line. Go like that, and then maybe extend it this way, pull it downwards again. And then you're going to be like, okay, cool. I have a good place now, and I can draw the second cloud within that within those box constraints. So you can actually use the entire rectangle cube building to build clouds and trees and mountains in perspective. It's a little bit more of a roundabout way of doing it, but it does work. Now, what about the ground itself? We said this is going to be a bunch of grassy plains, right? So I'm going to use a nice bright orange for this. So this place, way along the horizon or horizon line, that's where the land is meeting the sky. Now, imagine this. Let me just grab gray and put one more perspective line in here. Or 2 or 3. It's supposed to really be diminishing as it gets further away from us. Okay. So imagine that there are little rolling hills. As as the hills get closer to you, they're going to get further and further spaced apart. But as they get further away from you in perspective, actually technically further away from you in perspective, they're going to get closer and closer together. So you can literally use these lines we made over here as a guide for that. So let's imagine, I actually have a grass-ish, a grassy thing in here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. I just want to make accurate grass. Will that work? What is this? Yeah, this will work actually pretty well. So it's close to you, right? It's close to you, so your grass is going to be up front in your face, just like this. That's a really good grass tool. Holy man. And now the second one is going to be a little bit smaller. And you basically just use these lines that you've made to show the perspective and how things are going into the distance to also put your little hills into the distance. Let's make it even smaller, and this one's even closer now. Just blah, blah, blah. I'm getting a little bit lazy here. Blah, 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 like that. And now this third one, maybe you can start interspersing them together. Down to the side, like this. Play around with your composition a bit, and then they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller the further away they go, until they kind of just form this giant plane. And that's how you would use perspective lines to lay out your landscape. You can also do it with mountains. Heck, you can do it with basically anything. Now, that particular one, God, what was it called? That one thing of the webtoon I was talking about. Could I just open webtoon.com? That actually might display it better. You know, let's try doing this anyhow. Nope, it's not prologue. It's in chapter 1. I don't know which one it is. It's this one right here. What is that? Okay. So I actually ended up using a skybox specifically to make this particular picture, because it starts by you looking straight up, and then it gets closer and closer. So you can see these clouds are closer together, and you can only see essentially what their profile is. And then as it gets lower and lower and closer to you, you can see the top of the clouds more and more, and then down into the caverns. So that's how I actually quite literally used the perspective lines to create a dynamic composition. So it can be used, and it's not just me blowing hot air out my ass. Is there another one that does that? I have no idea if I have other ones that do that. What's in chapter 2? Nothing. What's in chapter 3? Okay, this picture, for instance, this was used making perspective lines. Absolute 100% perspective lines everywhere to make this particular image. Good morning. Where's Lethen? There's a really beautiful image in here that has Lethen in it, and I don't see it. It's like it's disappeared or something. Okay, this picture of Hilnej, definitely made using perspective lines. Coming down, drew him in perspective, and then you have the ground over here. There is one image I'm trying to look for that has a gorgeous background. Okay, this one right here. This was made entirely using perspective lines in 1-point perspective, and it looks super nice. So yeah, it's completely applicable to any form of art you want to do. I'm just trying to figure out where the heck that image went in here. It's like it disappeared. No, no, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, wow, that's super weird. His image is just not in here. That's awkward. Okay. But it's in cut images. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Yeah, so that's how I would use perspective to make landscapes. Okay, it is 3:10. It's actually 4:10, I'm sorry. So it's been about an hour and a half of teaching, and I think I want to keep the, I want to keep art school that long. I don't want to make them super long, because Sunday is technically my day off. So, if you guys want... Okay, I'm just going to clear this. Next week, it's going to be the exact same thing. 2 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to come back, and first 5 people who happen to ask me a question for a technique, I will answer to my best of my abilities. Kind of like today, you saw that sometimes there are knowledge gaps I have, like with anime hair specifically, and there's some things I just can't teach very well. I can point you at resources and good tutorials that other people have done, though. But I don't want to teach something when I do not know quite how to teach it, if that makes sense, because I don't want to give you wrong information or information that won't help you as much as it could. Okay. So, tomorrow is a Monday, which means that there are not going to be any videos. On Tuesday, I think I keep wanting to do a very specific tutorial. It's going to be how to draw bodies in perspective. So I think that's what we're going to be doing for this particular Tuesday. And then Wednesday is critique day, Thursday, you know, you can just look down in the comments to see what days have, not comments. You can look down into the description to see what days have what particular tutorial. Becky, I'm using Wacom Intuos Pro and Adobe Photoshop CC Pro 2015. That's what I use to draw these sorts of things. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. As per usual, make sure to drink your, I guess, coffee, because I'm like addicted to coffee at this point. Drink your water, get your sleep, believe in yourself, that's a big part of it, and chase your dreams. You can basically do anything you want as long as you practice and dedicate yourself to it. I will see you guys on Tuesday, and thank you for joining in for this particular session. Okie dokes. Okay,